Hello and welcome back to another Whose Power Rankings Is It Anyway? Yes, where it's all made up and the power rankings don't matter. Yes, they don't matter. There's been a lot of discussion from you guys in the comments. A lot of you guys very upset at me about Seoul. A lot of you very happy about how I talked about Philadelphia Fusion. There's been a lot of back and forth. I really appreciate sort of the, interesting sort of back and forths that we've been having in terms of which players you think are good. There's obviously some opinions in different directions for a lot of different teams and players. So it's been awesome, but we got to keep moving on. We are here. We're continuing on. We're going to the S tier of the West now. And I think it should be pretty obvious who is going to be going where, but let's go one by one. So we're going to start off with the classic Dallas Fuel, also known as Element Mystic in past forms. So this is theoretically the year in which Dallas Fuel is finally good. Dallas Fuel has been promised to be good since season 1 when I was there, and everyone was expecting this team to be good. It had one of the largest Western fan bases with just so much marketing potential behind it with Seagull, XQC. I guess I was there. But the team has never really lived up to that expectations. Even over the last couple of seasons, they've really been trying to put together something good, and it's just always fallen apart. Dallas Fuel came in with a new approach into this season, and they were like, blow it up and sign a trusty old reliable. And that is Element Mystic / Paris Eternal from last season. So let's have a look at the roster. So we have the only remaining player who was previously a Dallas Fuel player is Doha, which I think a lot of people can agree was one of the better players playing within the team. Has, from what we've seen, a pretty limited hero pool. I would say Sombra Genji is really the major things that we've seen from him that have impressed people. But obviously is a classic flex DPS player. And let's go down the list of the DPS and tanks and supports. Obviously, this is a very good team. They have a lot of individual talent, but there is some holes in here that is making a lot of people worried. I'm going to start with the DPS. So you have Doha, and then you have Sparkle and Exy, both coming from the Paris Eternal. So how good is this team going to be, right? It's like they already have the pre-existing synergy with the DPS. But what they're missing with the addition of Doha instead of players like Soon and Nico is a Tracer player. If you look at this team, I would say I'd want Exy on both the hit scan and the Tracer player most of the time. And even then, Exy isn't really known for his Tracer. It's good, but he's not really known for it. So if Exy is going to play that hit scan, that means Doha and Sparkle need to pick up the mantle of playing the Tracer, which they are good at. But when we talk Overwatch League level players, and when you get to the final hours, will Dallas Fuel be able to compete with the San Francisco Shock when you have when you have Striker on the other side of the field just running at you? I don't know if they're going to be able to fill that hole. I would love to see a new addition of just another hit scan / Tracer player that I think would really round out this DPS lineup, because obviously they're all, the three players, Exy, Sparkle, and Doha, are phenomenal individually, but I think the major issue that lies with it is that Doha and Sparkle have a very similar hero pool. It's like they both excel at Genji. They're both very good flex DPS players. They are great at those types of things, but they don't have that depth as much at the highest level on these other heroes. So that is my fear for this Dallas Fuel lineup right now. If we go into a hit scan plus Tracer meta, which has been something that's been good historically recently, is that going to be a weakness? And we'll see as time goes on. They haven't seemed like they're going to be making any new additions, but time will tell. So with that out of the way though, we go on to the tank lineup. We have Hanbin and Fearless. I don't think you can fault this. Fearless had a phenomenal season on the Shanghai Dragons last season. A great pickup for the Dallas Fuel. He's also reuniting with a lot of old teammates. And then you have Hanbin, who I think a lot of people would say was, in contention to be one of the rookies of the year. He was one of the best flex off tanks that we have. Obviously, there's a lot of other great off tanks in the league, but Hanbin is definitely one of the people up there. So I don't even want to go too far into this. Hanbin Fearless kind of pounds. It's going to be really good for this season, and that is the shining light, in my opinion, for this Dallas Fuel lineup. Then we go over to the supports, and we have Fielder, Repel, and Jexay. So obviously Repel and Jexay are coming from the Houston Outlaws. They had, I would say, a redemption season on the Houston Outlaws. They were one of the good pieces for the Houston Outlaws, and now they're on the Dallas Fuel, their rivals. I think that's very well rounded. But then you also add in Fielder, who played also for the Paris Eternal, he was a 200 ping bandit. He somehow just kept getting away with it on the Ana, on the flex support. He just did so well considering he wasn't able to play, participate, and practice in the LAN environment with the rest of his team. And he's playing on 200 ping and just put on so much of a show. I can name off the top of my head 3 different instances where he just turned a fight with just immaculate sleeps, nades, all that kind of stuff. So excited to see him play for the Dallas Fuel as well. So they have the double flex support. They have the main support. I'm really excited for their support lineup. I think this is a very solid support lineup. So overall, encompassing the team, that's a very solid team. As I said, there's a weakness, in my opinion, in the DPS lineup of the Tracer player. But if they can fill that, this is going to be a really good team. There are some people that are saying that Dallas Fuel is not going to be very good this season. I just think that's people who are scared of supporting Dallas Fuel. I really do. It's just that disappointment that we've all had for the last 3 seasons of every time you put your faith in Dallas Fuel, it gets taken away. And I think that's where the hesitant people are for this roster, because they're not willing to commit to it. Because on paper, this is one of the better teams in the league. This is a top 5 team, top 6 team. And it should be. If they don't get there, that is a failure, in my opinion, for this season. I don't think this will be a classic Dallas Fuel failure where they're easily bottom half of the league. But I think this team could falter off. But as I said, I'm just like everyone else. My expectations are low because the Dallas Fuel curse could just run through anything. If Dallas Fuel are bad this season, they just need to quit the league, because if they are bad this season, there is no world in which Dallas Fuel will ever be good, and they're just cursed to a point beyond saving. So fingers crossed that doesn't happen, and that we get to see Dallas finally rise up through the ranks. Looking at the coaches, we have Rush and Young coming in. So Rush obviously was the previous head coach of Paris Eternal and Element Mystic, so is also on par with all the players. They have so much history, just as like pre-existing synergy in contenders, and then also within the Overwatch League. So we also have Young coming in, who was on Element Mystic in the past as well, but then went to the Dallas Fuel, but he's been coaching since last season. So if you're seeing a theme here, and why everyone calls them the Dallas Mystic or the Element Fuel or whatever iteration you want to say of it, pretty much every player on this team close to has played for Element Mystic at some point. And they're sort of getting the band back together. We also have Aid, who was previously a player and was a coach for Paris Eternal, so just came over with the transition. So I'm excited. They have a great coaching staff. They have great players. This is the year. If you're going to hype up Dallas Fuel, I don't understand all the doubters and all the hate for this Dallas Fuel team. As I said, I think that's just reservations and people not wanting to be let down one more time. So hopefully the cycle and the circle of Dallas Fuel is finally broken this year, and the wheel will go back to normal. So that's it for Dallas Fuel. And then if we're talking about Dallas Fuel and we're talking about big Western teams that I guess haven't really lived up to their expectation, I think we're going to talk about the Gladiators. And it's weird talking about the Gladiators that they haven't lived up to their expectation, because they've always been good, right? And I think this is the distinction. I think even Deepe, if he was to talk about it, he wouldn't be happy with any of the results that the Gladiators have had, because they've always had a very good roster, but they've just never been able to, in the playoffs, really exceed that expectations and have that big run. It feels like in the playoffs, they've always fallen a little short, and they're always striving to be better and come back and be better for the next season. And this season, if they were going to go for a title or go into the finals, this would be the year, because they've picked up some incredible players. Last season, there was a lot more rookie and building season. I think this is the year that they're going, okay, everyone lock in. This is the season we're going to pull it off. So we have a lot of returning players from last season. We have Space, Birdring, Mira, and Kevster staying in from last season. But we need to talk about the newer players, because this is where I think the heart of the team and where they're going to be built up is coming from. So Muse is one of the best main tank prospects coming out of contenders. He has been a phenomenal player, and if you watched the SteelSeries Invitational, you'll understand why he's hyped up so much. He was just so good on the Reinhardt, I think he played a bit of Winston as well. He looks phenomenal. Coming from WGS Phoenix, as of recently in the 2020 season, is so solid and well-rounded, and what they needed for a main tank. I think OGE, previously, a lot of people can agree, was very up and down. They need that consistency in a main tank, and I think Muse is going to bring that. So I'm excited to see more of him. And a lot of people have him as their potential rookie of the year in place with a lot of other good main tanks coming up from contenders. So let's look at the support lineup, because we've got a complete overhaul. So the Big Goose and Shaz Dream Team has been broken up, and we've got a completely new thing. So we have Shu coming in from the Guangzhou Charge. Am I doubting myself on that? Yeah, Guangzhou Charge. Incredible flex support. He's never been that person that's really been massively stand out, but if you ask anyone within the league, he is one of the better flex supports. And I'm really excited to see him play for this Gladiators team, especially when you pair him against Moth, two-time champion for the San Francisco Shock, finally moving on to a new pasture with the Gladiators. I'm excited to see how he works within this mixed roster and how Moth is going to do not in the safety net of the San Francisco Shock, because I think it's very easy to look at some of the players on the Shock and be like, they're very, very good, but it's hard to know how good they would be on a team that isn't as successful or isn't as dominant as the Shock. So I really want to see Moth sort of put himself out there as like, hey guys, I am one of the best main supports in the league. Watch me do it again on the Gladiators. So he had a little bit of a shaky show match in the Steel Series Invitational, but there was just some weird things that happened. So hopefully that's all fixed up for the regular season. And then Skewed, who I'm sure a lot of people don't know a lot about. I personally don't. He's come from a Oz Gaming in the Korean Contenders. Obviously not a very successful team. But I'll tell you what, the little bit that I saw from him in the most recent Steel Series Invitational match, his brig was insane. He actually got a rally in like 34 seconds. He used a rally and then got it again in 34 seconds. I don't know how that's possible. I could be in the training range and not do it that effectively. So his brig might be that thing that's going to come in for them and just be that next level, that extra thing that, maybe Moth isn't as comfortable on it. Maybe they want to, have them diversify and focus on different things. Skewed seems like he has that, he's locked in on that brig, and I'm excited to see what else he's going to bring to the roster. So let's talk about the DPS lineup as well. We sort of brushed over them earlier. Birdring, Mirror, and Kevster. I think there were a lot of reservations about this DPS lineup going into the 2020 season. A lot of that has been put to rest for this 2021 season. Mirror and Kevster have exceeded everyone else's expectations. They are so good. Mirror and Kevster, their mechanics individually and their ability to just play so many different heroes is just insane. Some of the best and most flexible Western players that we have within the league, and I'm really, really, really excited to see how they're going to integrate that, because it felt like last season, neither of them were able to give that opportunity to shine because of just how hero pools worked, and they were kind of stuck in May jail or Zaya jail. I think it was, I can't remember which, I think it was Mirror who was just bouncing between roles, going left and right. So that's exciting for those two. And then you have Birdring, won the 2018 championship, one of the best hit scan players previously. People were worried going into 2020 if he still had it. Had a very bad 2019 season with GOATs and all that kind of stuff. But 2020, towards the end, Birdring was back. And anyone who disagrees with that, go back and watch the matches. Birdring wouldn't miss. He was taking it to the best hit scans in the world and just showing them what's up. I think I vaguely remember a King's Row match where he just killed everyone, and it wasn't even close. I was getting PTSD from me playing against London Spitfire in 2018. So I'm excited for this DPS lineup. As I said, this is one of the better DPS lineups that we have in the league, in my opinion. Then you have Space, obviously a tried and true flex tank player who's just very vocal, leadership position. Excited to see him really sort of step up this season and sort of hopefully lead this team to a new level. So I don't know if you could put this Gladiators team any lower. As I said, they've never been able to, when push comes to shove, it's crunch time. Gladiators seem to get sort of lost in the sauce a little bit, and they just never really live up to that expectation. I hope to see a different Gladiators. I want to see these guys really pop up, especially with LA Valiant failing and pretty much releasing all their fans. A lot of them are going to be the Gladiators. This could be the Gladiators like glow up season where they become one of the more popular teams and one of the more successful teams in the league, which is good for the league. So the coaching is very similar to what we've seen historically. We have Deepe as the head coach. He's been around since the beginning, has a great vision for the team. We have Face, who was, I've talked with. He's a really smart, hardworking guy. And then Ty Dollar, that people would know less about, but has previously coached for the Guangzhou Charge. So great coaching staff. There's no holes, in my opinion, in this Gladiators lineup. We talked about the Dallas Fuel earlier in this video. They have great players. Same thing with Seoul Dynasty. There are a couple of holes that I can see, in Summer and Trace. I don't really see that here for this team. Maybe they'll emerge as time goes on, but I'm pretty happy with what I see here from the Gladiators. So excited to see them pop off this season. Then the last one should be pretty self-explanatory. I don't think, the Justice, they have a new revised roster, but I'm not putting them in the S+ tier. I'm not putting them on the Dragons and the Shock level. So the Washington Justice, and this team is a massive overhaul. So 2020 season was obviously a very disappointing one for the Justice, except for in the final hours. Justice were just very disappointing, never able to live up to expectations. They had so many issues with just not really finding their identity or not really having the talent. And then you cue Decay. And that gave them that massive playoff run. And that massive playoff run was important for them, not for last season, but for this season. I think that gave them the sort of the marketing of like, hey, we got Decay. You guys saw what we're capable of. Come to the Justice. And they put up that banner and people came. So the Washington Justice is pretty stacked. So they've had a lot of different drops and additions. So let's go over the drops. So we saw Stitch, Janu, and Aim God all depart the Washington Justice, and I really like this decision because as much as these were great players, I think getting some fresh blood into here is good for the league because like Aim God was very up and down. He had some great plays towards the end of the season, but for the most part, I don't think was living up to that expectation. Same thing can be said for Janu and Stitch. Janu was obviously a question mark because he was historically one of the best flex tanks. But yeah, they've gone in a different direction. So let's go over it. So we have Tuba, Decay, Jerry, and Assassin as the DPS lineup. And I really like this DPS lineup. I think without Assassin, it was like a little bit, is Tuba going to be able to really fill that flex DPS role? But you put Assassin in. I watched a VOD of Assassin recently playing Hanzo. It just doesn't miss. He's one of those Hanzos that you're watching. It's like, dude, you're pretty much just shooting into the void. How do you keep hitting their head? I don't get it. He's insane. Really excited to see more of him coming into this league. And I think he'll sort of balance out Tuba very well in that flex DPS role. And then you have Decay and Jerry. You have Jerry able to play that hit scan in case Decay needs to play the Tracer or something like that. Jerry, obviously, kind of a meme, but also kind of not. Playing for the Boston Uprising. Great hit scan, had some great matches. I think he'll be a great backup player for when they need someone to fill that hole. But obviously, this is kind of like a profit situation for me with Decay. Decay should never come out of the lineup. He proved last season that he is a superstar who can do it in any role. I really want to see him show up and lead this team to victory once again, and not just in the playoffs, right? I want to see a great regular season. So that's the DPS lineup. Let's go to the tanks because this is exciting. So Mag is, I was talking about Muse as being one of the hyped up contenders main tanks, rivaled only probably to Mag. Mag is the runaway main tank who's just been, look at this and be like, yeah, this guy's not going to pound in the Overwatch League. Main tank player, does it all. Just obviously illustrious career in contenders. Fresh, just 18. 2002 is 18. Oh God, I'm getting old. Freshly 18. I'm excited to see him really show up and put his stamp on the league. And then especially when you put his off tanks as Fury and Rhea, two veteran people of the league to play the off tank. What is kind of rumored of what happened here is that Rhea, they picked up Rhea, and then what happened was Fury ended up becoming a free agent. And that is why they do have two off tanks. I'm expecting Fury to play more than Rhea. Yeah, I got a lot of backlash in my last video with Philadelphia Fusion for saying Poco is comparable to Fury. A lot of people rate Fury very, very highly, which deservedly so. He's been so good for so long. But I think Fury is definitely going to be the mainstay. Rhea had some good moments on the Diva in Goat's meta, but other than that, hasn't really shown up as much. So I really like their tank lineup. I think it's very well-rounded, and I'm excited to see what they, Fury on another team. How many teams has Fury played for now? 3? London, Philly, and Washington? Why do I feel like I'm forgetting one? No, that's just those 3. For some reason, I thought it was 4, and he was going for the Fisher level of teams. But yeah, it's gonna be nice. The question mark for me for the Justice for this team goes to the support lineup. Bebe and Closer. Bebe, previously coming from the Hangzhou Spark, he's good. He's always been solid, right? I don't think anyone can be like, oh, he's a bad flex support. He deserves to be in the league. He definitely deserves to be here. Whether or not he's going to be able to keep up with your alarms, your violets, your Izayakis, that is the question to be held. Because when you're putting a roster like this together, you need to have strength in every role. And it's going to be on Bebe to prove that he can step up to that plate. The same thing can be said for Closer. I haven't really been impressed with Closer on this main support, especially the Lucio as of late. He just hasn't really had that impact that we've seen from other main supports. And I don't really know what his strengths are. And I'm really worried that that's going to become very apparent, especially if we go into a Lucio Brawl meta in the West, which is looking like right now, Lucio, it can be a very important role that needs to do a little bit more every now and then. And if Closer can't do that, it can hold you back a lot. So that is my reservations with this team. Other than that, I think it's very, very good. And I hope these players prove me wrong because they've put together a very solid roster. So we're going to look at the coaching as well. We have Supreme, who's been around for a while for the Justice. He's finally got a very good roster to work around. We got Chihua and Hokuri, who have a bit of experience in the league as well on different teams. So I think the Justice, this is finally a good Justice team for the most part. Justice has always been a team that's been like, they could definitely like perform well and over-exceed expectations. But even then, you would never really expect them to be in the playoff contentions. And I think that mold was broken last season, at the end of last season, when they made that crazy run using the like Roadhog Zarya strat, whatever I just witnessed on that one. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how those teams do. And that is it for my S tier. Obviously, you guys can work out who's going into S+ tier, but we need to talk about these teams because it's going to be the age-old question of, is Shanghai going to be the best team in the league? When, they've sort of made some minor adjustments, while the Shockers made some more drastic adjustments to their team, which do raise a lot of questions. So that is it for the Dallas Fuel, the Gladiators, and the Justice. Let me know what you guys think, because these 3 teams, I think, have a lot of back and forth. Some people are expecting way more from these teams. Some people expecting way less, and they want to see some more movement within these power rankings. So let me know in the comments. I appreciate you guys all for tuning in. Really enjoying the content, giving back a little. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see more content. After these power rankings, I'm going to be doing a ton of VOD reviews for when the league is actually going on, and we'll be able to see all my ideas in practice. So make sure to do that. Love you all. Peace out. See you soon.